Hey, it's James Lynch. They just announced two really big fights for UFC 325 on the UFC 323 broadcast tonight. And the first fight that they announced was Dan Hooker taking on Benoit Saint-Denis. That's going to be the co-main event for Alex Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. The other fight they announced was Rafael Fiziev taking on Mauricio Ruffy. Another great fight in the lightweight division. So two really big fights for 155 added to this card. Let's go through the first one I mentioned there, Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint-Denis. What an awesome fight. Hooker getting a pretty decent turnaround from the Qatar card. Going to be taking on Benoit Saint-Denis, who's on a nice win streak heading into this one. Quick tail of the tape between these two. Dan Hooker is 35 years old, 6 feet tall with a 75.5 inch reach. Benoit Saint-Denis, 29 years old, 5'11 with a 73 inch reach. So Hooker going to be a little bit bigger in this spot, but he's also 6 years older than Benoit Saint-Denis. And I mentioned it there, coming off that loss to Arman Tsarukyan where he got choked out in the second round. It just looked like he wasn't ready for sort of that contender spot here. And we'll see how he performs against a guy like Benoit Saint-Denis, who has shown over the last couple fights especially can be very dangerous. Prior to that, Hooker had a couple nice wins. Claudio Puelles, Jalen Turner, and Mateusz Gamrot. Those Turner and Gamrot fights were split decisions. I haven't seen him get a finish since the Puelles fight back in 2022. But the big thing with Hooker obviously is the amount of damage he's taken over the last little bit. Hasn't been easy. Plus he's had injuries as well. If you look at the stats there, they sort of back this up as far as the striking defense goes. Striking defense is at 50%, so he does get hit a bit, and he has taken a lot of damage over the last couple fights. Arman, for example, outstruck him 42-10 in their fight. So something to sort of keep in mind going into this fight. Now, Benoit Saint-Denis, like I mentioned, he was sort of thought as the, what was the word that people used, a couple fights back, the fraud check thing, right? People were saying that after he lost to Poirier, after he lost to Moicano. But since then, 3 straight wins, 2 of those wins being very important. The Ruffy win was very good, him getting the second round submission there, and then knocking out Dariush in 16 seconds, also very impressive, although we've seen Dariush, get finished in a number of fights in the first round too, so that's something to sort of keep in mind. The big thing there with Saint-Denis, 11 wins by submission, 5 by knockout, and he's fighting a guy in Dan Hooker who's got 4 losses by submission already, including the one he had against Arman Tsarukyan in the second round when they fought, like I said, a couple weeks ago. As far as like an early pick on this one, I'll do, obviously something on early look. I'm actually going to go with Saint-Denis here because he's a little bit younger. I feel like the momentum's on his side. I do worry about Hooker's durability and all that, and if you look at Hooker's wins prior to that, he was able to squeak out some wins, but I don't know if he'll be able to do that against Saint-Denis, who's a very fast starter. We'll see how that goes. Again, saying that, we also have seen Saint-Denis, blow a couple fights as well, like we saw with the Poirier fight and the fight against Renato Moicano. So there we go. Like I said, I'll do this a little bit more in depth once I do the early look show. Okay, let's talk about Fiziev and Ruffy. Like this fight a lot. Actually, one thing I will just double check here. I wanted to see where the rankings are. So I mentioned Hooker and I mentioned Saint-Denis. So Hooker 6, Saint-Denis 8 makes total sense. Like there's no one really for him to fight. All these other guys are booked. And then you've got Fiziev, who's number 9, taking on Ruffy, who's number 14. And again, some of these guys, like maybe you could have done Fiziev and Moicano, you could have done Fiziev and Chandler, although who knows what's going on there. Dariush, it sounds like he might be going to 170. So yeah, Ruffy makes a lot of sense from a ranking standpoint. Fiziev, 32 years old, 5'8" with a 71.5 inch reach, taking on Ruffy, 29 years old, 5'11" with a 75 inch reach. So Ruffy going to be a little bit taller, will have a little bit of a reach advantage in this fight too. He's also a couple years younger than Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev coming off a nice bounce back win there to Bahamodes, getting it done. Was he a dog in that fight? I was trying to remember. I think he was an underdog there going into that fight, as my browser's not acting right. He was like a slight underdog at plus 115. So he gets it done in that fight. Had a couple losses prior to that. He had 2 losses to Gaethje. The second Gaethje fight was short notice, right? It was actually replacing Dan Hooker, interestingly enough, against Gaethje. And then the Gamrot fight was an injury. Like, I don't think you can take a whole lot away from that fight. So really, you have to go all the way back to the Musafayev fight that he's, been finished. But he's had a couple just weird fights prior to that, in that losing streak. And then leading up to that, nice win streak there, including, I forgot he fought Moicano as well. He knocked out Moicano in the first round. So he's got a couple wins. Moicano, King Green, Brad Riddell, Rafael dos Anjos. So we'll see if Fiziev's able to get a win here there as well. With Ruffy, a lot of hype, obviously, and then that came to a halt when he got submitted by Benoit Saint-Denis in the second round. Pretty dominant win there for BSD in that one. Prior to that, got the win over King Green. I think people forget this line top fight where he was a huge favorite and, barely got by. He was minus 900. Didn't look like it in that fight. Ruffy definitely looked like, like someone like the odds should have been closer in that one. So that was maybe like a sign that, maybe not as good as people think. Obviously the Malarkey win was good in his debut. But yeah, just a couple UFC fights, right? He's only got 4 UFC fights so far, and he's fighting against Fiziev, who's been with the promotion for quite some time. It's been in there since when? 2019. So been in there for a number of years. We'll see what happens. Obviously Ruffy, 11 wins by knockout. He's fighting a guy in Fiziev, who also has a lot of knockouts, 8 total. He's also got 4 decisions. Kind of leaving Fiziev in this one. I think you have to, just based off the opposition he's fought and the fact that he's pretty durable. Like if you look at his losses, he does have 2 knockout losses. One of them was an injury. The other one was the Mustafayev one, which, I think 9 times out of 10 these guys fight. Fiziev's winning that one. He can be knocked out, obviously, and maybe Ruffy could be the guy to do it here, but I do lean Fiziev just based off that experience. And I think Fiziev right now, still a very dangerous guy in the weight class. I don't know if Ruffy's at that point. Maybe he will be. Maybe this is a fight where he shows it. He can go out there and put on a really good performance, but I have some questions. Like, again, I think Ruffy can beat sort of the lower level guys, but when he gets that step up, it's tough to say. Like, again, a King Green's much older than a Fiziev. I don't think he's going to be able to get away with some of the stuff that he's done in that fight. So leaning Fiziev in that one. This is a 3-round fight. I think Fiziev would probably take a decision, or maybe could finish him too. Although, just 1 win by submission, and that's how Ruffy lost his last fight, was by submission. Don't know if that happens here too. But I could see Fiziev getting it done. I mean, Ruffy's also been knocked out too. But it's been a while since Fiziev's had a knockout win. Got to go all the way back to the RDA fight in 2022, the last time he had a knockout win. So kind of leading Fiziev decision there. As far as Hooker and Saint-Denis, I could see Saint-Denis finishing this just because it's 5 rounds. He could maybe get like a late submission, 3rd, 4th round submission. That's kind of where my head's going right now. But again, both these fights I got to dig into a little bit deeper as we get closer to the fight. But certainly very interested to see how these guys look in their next couple fights. And, just quickly, let's talk about the implications for both guys. So a win here for Hooker, right, gets him kind of back in that mix at sort of the upper echelon of lightweight. So that would be very big for him. A loss, there'll be 2 losses plus a long layoff plus some injuries. I don't know where a loss would put him. This is kind of a pivotal fight for Hooker if he wants to be in that conversation of contenders, because if he loses this fight, I hate to say it, a guy who's 35 right now, going to be 36 before this fight, right? It's going to be tough for him to kind of climb that ladder going forward. Sorry, when is this fight? It's January 31st. He will be 36 after the fight. Got my dates mixed up there. I was thinking of the video I just did before with Fluffy and Sean Strickland. That fight's in February. So yeah, Hooker really needs to win this fight. We'll see if he does. Benoit Saint-Denis, again, we've already seen him lose. He's still young enough where I don't even think we've seen the best version of him yet. We'll have to kind of see how that sort of unfolds. But like I said, I think a loss here would obviously kill some momentum, and it would probably start a storyline of like, well, he can't win the big fights, right? So this is definitely a bigger fight, I think, for him than some of the other guys he's fought. Dariush was up there too, but problem with Dariush is we've seen him losing the first round before, so we'll have to see how that goes. So yeah, again, a win for Saint-Denis would really accelerate him. I think we heard before the Poirier fight, had he beat Poirier, there was talks of him fighting for a title, so it seems to me like the UFC really likes him. I could definitely see that happening there. For Fiziev, a win here would certainly put him back in the mix. He's been kind of out of the mix for a bit just because of the losing streak. I think a win here over Ruffy would put him in that conversation despite Ruffy being lower ranked. And I think with Ruffy, he can kind of silence the fraud check people and all that if he gets a big win here. Like if Ruffy gets this win, then he's absolutely legit. Like you beat a Fiziev, that's a very good win in the weight class. So for me, it's the way I look at this fight, I think this is a huge opportunity for Ruffy to kind of bounce back from that last fight and show that he belongs in the upper echelon of the division. So yeah, 2 really good fights added to UFC 325. Looking forward to this one on January 1st going down in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. So let me know what you think in the comments. Were these the fight to makes? Were these the fights you wanted to see happen? Who wins them? Let me know. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.